The Stoic Guide to Dealing with Narcissists starts with a fact most people spend years refusing to accept. You cannot love, argue, or sacrifice a narcissist into becoming someone capable of loving you back. That capability, if it was ever going to exist, was already decided long before you arrived. What you actually get to decide is something else entirely, and that's what this video is about. If you've ever loved, worked for, or grown up under someone who made you feel like the most important person in the room one day and completely invisible the next, someone whose approval you found yourself chasing even as it cost you pieces of yourself you're still trying to find, you already know something most people never have to learn. You know what it feels like to be a supporting character in someone else's story about their own greatness. The Stoics never had the clinical term. Narcissistic personality wasn't a diagnosis in the ancient world, but they lived constantly in the company of exactly this kind of person: emperors who demanded to be worshipped, patrons who required constant flattery, powerful men who used and discarded the people around them without a flicker of guilt. And out of that constant exposure, they built something that still holds up today. Not a way to fix the narcissist, because that was never on the table, but a way to stop losing yourself to them. Today, 6 principles, not theory, a working guide tested by people who navigated the most narcissistic figures in the ancient world and came out the other side with their own sense of self still intact. If someone in your life has ever made you feel like you were disappearing in real time just to keep their approval, stay to the end. The 6th principle is the one that finally hands you back what they took. And if this channel has helped you see something clearly before, take a second to subscribe now, because we go deep on exactly this kind of thing every week. Let's begin. Before the first principle, I want to say something plainly, because almost nobody says it to you directly when you're in the middle of this. None of what happened to you was because you weren't loving them well enough. It wasn't because you didn't try hard enough, apologize sincerely enough, or explain yourself clearly enough for them to finally understand you. A narcissist's capacity for genuine empathy is not a locked door that the right key eventually opens. For many of them, by the time you meet them as an adult, that door was never built at all. That is not a comfortable thing to accept. It's much more comfortable in a strange way to believe you simply haven't found the right approach yet, because that belief, however painful, still leaves you with a sense of control. If you just try harder, surely eventually they'll see you. The Stoics would ask you to consider a harder truth. Some things are simply not yours to fix, and continuing to try is not devotion. It's a slow erosion of the only thing you actually had the power to protect the entire time: yourself. Epictetus put the entire discipline in a single sentence that applies here with almost surgical precision. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. You cannot change their view of you. You were never going to be able to. What you can change, the only thing that was ever actually available to you, is your view of the situation itself and what you do next inside it. 6 principles. Let's go. Principle 1. They perform warmth before they ever feel it. Imagine a woman named Rosalind, 44, a marketing director in Chicago, who met the man who would become her husband at a conference where he seemed almost immediately like the most attentive person she had ever encountered. He remembered details from a single conversation weeks earlier. He told her, within their first month together, that he had never felt this deeply understood by anyone. He made her feel, in a way she couldn't quite articulate, like she had been discovered rather than simply met. It took nearly a decade, and a marriage, and 2 children, for Rosalind to understand what that intensity had actually been. Not love arriving quickly, a performance calibrated with unusual skill, designed to make her feel singled out before either of them actually knew each other at all. Marcus Aurelius understood the danger of this kind of performed warmth from very early in his life, because he grew up in the orbit of the Emperor Hadrian, a man of extraordinary intelligence, charm, and generosity, who was also, by nearly every historical account, capable of turning that generosity into cruelty, with almost no warning at all. Hadrian could elevate a man to extraordinary favor one year and destroy him the next, and the same charm that made him magnetic to be around made the eventual turn all the more disorienting for the people who had believed sincerely that his warmth toward them was personal and permanent. What protected the young Marcus, as he came of age inside that unpredictable orbit, was not distance from Hadrian. He couldn't have that given his position. It was a teacher, Junius Rusticus, who trained him specifically not to mistake intensity for genuineness in anyone, regardless of how flattering or convincing the intensity felt in the moment. Marcus later wrote about the discipline this instilled in him. Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. That is precisely the test a narcissist's early charm will not survive if you know to apply it. Ask honestly, not how good the attention feels, but what it's actually costing you to keep receiving it. Your instincts, your boundaries, your other relationships, your own sense of what's true. Genuine warmth rarely asks you to pay for it in pieces of yourself. Performed warmth almost always does eventually, once the performance has served its purpose. Rosalind, looking back now, says the earliest warning sign wasn't anything he did wrong. It was how quickly the intensity arrived, and how completely it seemed to require her total, undivided admiration in return, right from the very beginning. Real connection generally takes longer to reveal itself than that. If it arrives instantly, complete and overwhelming, it's worth asking what exactly is generating that speed, and whether it's actually about you or about how well you're reflecting something back. Principle 2. You cannot reason a narcissist into empathy. Now meet a man named Desmond, 51, whose father, well into his 80s, remained, by every account from every person who had ever dealt with him, almost entirely incapable of acknowledging when he had hurt someone. Desmond spent decades, genuinely, exhaustively decades, trying to construct the perfect explanation, the one built carefully enough, calmly enough, persuasively enough, that his father would finally understand the damage his behavior had caused and, at long last, actually change. It never worked. Not once, in over 40 years of trying. And the specific tragedy of Desmond's decades of effort wasn't just that it failed. It was that he kept believing each time that the next attempt might be the one that finally landed. Because the alternative, accepting that no explanation was ever going to work, felt like giving up on his father entirely. Epictetus taught something that speaks with unusual precision to exactly this exhaustion. Trained as a slave in a household of arbitrary, frequently cruel authority, he came to understand something about the limits of persuasion that most people spend a lifetime refusing to learn. Some things are in our control, and others are not. In our control are opinion, aim, desire, and aversion. Not in our control are body, property, reputation, and command. A narcissist's capacity for empathy belongs permanently to the second category. It was never within your control, no matter how skillfully you argued, how patiently you explained, or how many times you tried a new angle. Continuing to treat it as something you might eventually unlock through better effort is not hope. It's a category error, mistaking something fundamentally outside your control for something merely difficult, and burning years of your life on the difference. Desmond's turning point came eventually from a therapist who asked him a question that reframed decades of effort in a single sentence. What would you actually be doing with your time and energy right now if you accepted that this was never going to change? Desmond didn't have an answer immediately. It took him months to build one, but the question itself did something the previous 40 years of trying harder never had. It returned his own life, finally, back into his own hands. You're allowed to stop trying to make someone understand something they were never capable of understanding. That is not cruelty toward them. It is, finally, mercy toward yourself. Principle 3. Provocation is bait, not a genuine argument. Imagine a woman named Theodora, 37, whose older sister has spent years perfecting a specific talent. The ability to say something at family gatherings precisely calibrated to provoke a reaction. And then the moment Theodora responds with any visible frustration, pivoting immediately to appear as the wounded, reasonable party in front of everyone watching. For years, Theodora fell for it every single time, because the bait was genuinely well constructed and genuinely difficult to ignore. She would respond, defend herself, try to correct the record, and every single time, the family conversation would end with Theodora looking like the difficult one. and her sister receiving the sympathy she had engineered from the start. There's a well-documented episode from Marcus Aurelius's reign involving a general, Avidius Cassius, who declared himself emperor during a rebellion and spread the false rumor that Marcus had died, hoping to consolidate power before Marcus could respond. It would have been entirely reasonable for Marcus to react with fury, launching an aggressive public campaign to defend his position and punish the betrayal. Instead, historical accounts describe a strikingly measured response. Marcus reportedly said he would have preferred the chance to forgive Cassius rather than defeat him in battle. And when the rebellion fell apart before he even arrived, he declined to have Cassius's family punished for the betrayal at all. He wrote elsewhere the exact principle underneath that restraint: "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." A narcissist's provocation is almost never actually about the disagreement on the surface. It's a mechanism, engineered specifically to generate a reaction that can then be used against you. Evidence manufactured in real time that you're the unreasonable one, the difficult one, the one who always overreacts. The moment you supply that reaction, you've handed them exactly what the provocation was designed to extract. Theodora eventually learned to recognize the specific tone her sister used right before a provocation, and to respond when she noticed it with something almost boringly neutral. A simple acknowledgement, no defense, no correction, no visible frustration at all. Without the reaction to work with, the provocations over time produced almost nothing for her sister to use, and they slowly, noticeably, became less frequent. A provocation only succeeds if you supply the fuel, withhold it, calmly, consistently, and you take away the only thing that ever made it worth their effort. Principle 4. The idealized devalue discard cycle is not personal. Now meet a man named Emmerich, 39, who spent 6 years working directly under a founder at a fast-growing startup. A man who, in Emmerich's first year, called him the best hire we've ever made in front of the entire company, gave him extraordinary autonomy, and seemed genuinely to see something exceptional in him that no one else had noticed yet. By year 4, the same founder had begun, almost imperceptibly at first, undermining Emmerich in meetings, taking credit for his work, and describing him to other executives as someone who used to be sharper and had lost his edge. By year 6, Emmerich was pushed out entirely, replaced by a newer hire receiving the exact same extraordinary praise Emmerich had once received himself. The pattern is one of the oldest, most well-documented dynamics in relationships with narcissistic people: idealize, devalue, discard, and one of the clearest historical illustrations of it belongs to Seneca and the Emperor Nero. In his early years as emperor, Nero relied on Seneca constantly, treating him as an indispensable advisor and, by many accounts, something close to a father figure, elevating him to extraordinary wealth and influence. As Nero's own instability deepened over the following years, that same closeness curdled into suspicion and resentment. Seneca was gradually pushed from the center of power, and in the final act of the relationship, Nero ordered the same man he had once idealized to end his own life. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius long before that final order arrived, seemed to understand exactly what he was dealing with. Nothing is so much to be feared as a needy friend, except one who is needed and knows it. Nero's need for Seneca, and later his resentment of that need, was never really about who Seneca actually was. It was about what Seneca represented to Nero at each stage. First, a source of validation and competence he required. Later, a reminder of his own dependency that he could no longer tolerate. Emmerich's founder operated on precisely the same mechanism. The praise was never really about Emmerich's talent. It was about what having Emmerich around did for the founder's own image, until it stopped serving that function and needed a replacement. If you're in the devaluation phase of this cycle right now, the most important thing to understand is this: it was never a referendum on your actual worth. It was always a reflection of what you represented to someone whose sense of self depends entirely on external supply. And that supply cycle was always going to eventually need a new source, regardless of anything you did or didn't do. Principle 5. Protect your grip on reality. Imagine a woman named Bianca. 46, whose mother has spent Bianca's entire adult life rewriting shared history with a confidence that used to leave Bianca genuinely doubting her own memory. Events Bianca remembered clearly: a cruel comment, a broken promise, a specific moment of neglect during her childhood, her mother would describe with total, unshaken certainty as having happened completely differently or not at all. For years, this left Bianca in a near-constant state of quiet disorientation, uncertain whether she was misremembering her own life or whether her mother was somehow actually right. There's a story about Epictetus's early life, from his time as a slave in the household of Epaphroditus, describing a moment when his master twisted his leg during a punishment, and Epictetus is said to have observed calmly that if his master kept twisting, the leg would break. His master kept twisting, it broke. Epictetus's reported response was simply, "Did I not tell you that it would break?" What that story illustrates, beyond the obvious cruelty, is something crucial for exactly what Bianca went through. Epictetus's grip on his own reality never wavered, even inside a system explicitly designed to make his account of events worth less than someone else's. He held, without flinching, to what he knew to be true, regardless of the power the other person had to punish him for it. He later taught the principle underneath that composure: you are not your body, nor your possessions, but your capacity to choose. Your memory of what actually happened to you is not up for renegotiation just because someone with more confidence, more authority, or more emotional leverage insists on a different version. Bianca eventually began keeping a private, dated record of specific incidents, not to confront her mother with it, but simply to anchor her own account of her own life against confident rewriting she could no longer trust herself to resist without some outside reference point. It changed something fundamental in her, having that anchor. She stopped needing her mother's agreement to know what had actually happened to her. Protecting your grip on your own reality is not paranoia. It is one of the most basic forms of self-respect available to you, and it does not require anyone else's permission or agreement to remain valid. Principle 6. Your worth was never theirs to grant. Finally, there is a man named Wendell, 63, and everything in this video has been building toward the shape of his life now, because Wendell spent the better part of 3 decades under the influence of a business partner, whose approval he had organized much of his identity around, before finally, in his 50s, extracting himself entirely. For years, Wendell measured his own competence almost exclusively through that partner's reactions. A good day was one where he'd earned a rare compliment. A bad day was one where he'd been reminded, subtly or not so subtly, of some failure that never seemed to fully recede from the record. It took Wendell an embarrassingly long time, by his own account, to notice that his sense of his own worth had become almost entirely outsourced to a man who had never once demonstrated the capacity to value anyone consistently, including, as far as Wendell could tell himself. Epictetus spent decades at his school in Nicopolis training students in exactly the discipline Wendell eventually built for himself the hard way: the understanding that your judgment of yourself is the one territory no outside person, however powerful, however convincing, however central to your life, can actually occupy without your consent. No man is free who is not master of himself. That mastery is not something a narcissist can grant you, and it was never something they were withholding from you either. It was always, entirely, already yours, a territory you had simply handed over, piece by piece, in exchange for an approval that, even at its most generous, was never actually stable enough to build anything real on. Wendell's business partnership ended eventually, in a way that looked from the outside unremarkable. A quiet dissolution, a few difficult conversations, nothing dramatic. What changed permanently was internal. Wendell stopped waiting after that for anyone's verdict on whether he was doing well. He simply decided, for the first time in 3 decades, on his own terms, and found to his genuine surprise that his own verdict was more than sufficient. Your worth was never theirs to grant, and it was never theirs to take away either. It only ever looked that way because you had understandably handed them the authority to decide. That authority can be taken back. It usually starts with the single, quiet decision to stop asking. We began today with a hard truth, that you cannot love, argue, or sacrifice a narcissist into becoming capable of loving you back, because that capability was decided long before you ever arrived. 6 principles, each one carried to us by people who navigated exactly this kind of relationship at the highest possible stakes. A young Marcus Aurelius, learning not to mistake performed intensity for genuine warmth inside the unpredictable orbit of Hadrian's court. Epictetus, teaching the difference between what is genuinely within your control and what only feels that way. Marcus again, refusing to hand a provocateur the reaction his rebellion was designed to extract. Seneca, understanding, even as it happened to him, that Nero's need and eventual resentment were never really about who Seneca actually was. Epictetus, once more, holding his own account of reality, steady inside a household built to make it worthless. And Wendell finally deciding, after 3 decades, that his own verdict on himself was the only one that had ever actually mattered. Let's bring them together, plainly. Recognize performed warmth for what it is before it costs you pieces of yourself. Stop trying to reason someone into an empathy they were never capable of. Deny provocation the reaction it's engineered to extract. Understand that the idealized devalue discard cycle was never a verdict on your worth. Protect your grip on your own reality, regardless of how confidently someone insists on a different version. And take back the authority you handed over to grant yourself worth, because it was always, entirely, yours to begin with. Epictetus, a man who once owned nothing at all, not his body, not his freedom, not even his own name, left behind the sentence that holds everything we've covered today inside it. No man can rob us of our will. They can perform closeness. They can provoke you, devalue you, rewrite your own memory back to you with total confidence. What they cannot do, what no narcissist in the history of the world has ever actually been able to do, is make the choice about your own worth for you. That choice was always yours, it still is. If this video helped you see something more clearly, subscribe so the next one finds you. And if you've lived through any part of what we covered today, tell us in the comments. It helps this find the next person who needs exactly this today. Take care of your mind. The world will take care of itself. Until next time.